Hello, family. I hope you had yourself an amazing Monday. It is the 15th of July 2024, and this is the Black Hot Fire Monday updates with me, Dimoli. Of course, I'm here to be tell you about each and everything that was happening all through Africa today and over the weekend. Not a lot was happening really, but we had some news from, for example, Congo, which was having its election today. So I'm gonna be telling you about the Congolese election, which we all know he's gonna win. So we're gonna be talking about that in a bit. We're also going to be looking at um, a UNICEF report, a WHO UNICEF data, the latest one that they have released that is showing that a decline in the number of children who are immunized, who are the global childhood immunization coverage and how it has stalled. Looks like people are no longer getting vaccinated, immunized anymore as much as they used to a few years ago. And so, of course, WHO and UNICEF released a statement talking about how dangerous that is and how over 14.5 million children are missing on vaccination and how that is dangerous for their health, in quotes. We're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be looking at Mogadishu, where at least 5 people were killed yesterday in Mogadishu during the Euro football final after they were bombed. So we're going to be looking at Mogadishu and Somalia at large and the security situation there and how it keeps getting worse and worse every day, even with the transition from, they transitioned into a new government. The same thing happening with the Al-Shabaab, of course, controlling a big part of the country. And now we're having, even in Kenya, complaints that too many Somalis too many illegal Somalis have entered into Kenya. So we're gonna be talking about that. We're also going to be looking at something that happened over the weekend, an interesting thing where it looks like, I'm saying it looks like because it's very hard at this point to establish whatever is true and whatever is not, but it looks like Trump had a near-death incident. Was it? Was it not? It's a matter of discussion. It's a matter of debate. I don't know whether it was true. I don't know whether it was staged, whether it was real. Um, but it looks like Trump had a near-death incident, and that did capture my attention. And of course, it has been a talking point in Africa. With the U.S. election is always a talking point all over the world, and especially in Africa, because it's people consider the US as the world power, and its relation with with various African countries. So of course, some Africans are supporting Trump, some Africans are supporting Biden, and of course this had to be a talking point for Africans, with so many Africans being invested in the US upcoming elections. We're going to be talking about that. Also going to be looking at Algeria, where Algeria is also having its election soon, but just like Cameroon, just like Rwanda, just like majority of those African countries, where in as much as we say democracy does not exist in as much as in Africa, look like there are some places where now even the idea, leave alone democracy, even the idea of democracy does not exist. Talking about countries that have had the same leaders for 40, 50, for 30, 40 years. In Algeria, almost all key opponent figures have quit. Key opposition figures have quit the presidential race. I'll be telling you about that. It's a situation that is almost similar to the one in Cameroon, where Paul Biya is doing his thing, and now he might end up running unopposed. Talking about Trump, I was looking at some of the attempted assassinations that have happened in the United States since 1776, and I see it's been quite a few. Looks like assassination of presidents is actually very common in the United States, because if I'm not wrong, Abraham Lincoln was also assassinated in the 18. Let me see, when was he assassinated? Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in 1865. What other American president has been James Garfield was assassinated. That was the 20th president. Was also assassinated 6 months after taking office. He was the second president to be assassinated after after Abraham Lincoln. That is in 1881, as he was trying to catch a train to New England, where he was shot. So I'm reading here that Alexander Graham Bell tried unsuccessfully to find the bullet lodged in Garfield's chest using a device he designed specifically for the president. However, the president lay wounded at White House for several weeks but died in September after he was taken to New Jersey. He had held office for 6 months when he died. The other president was the 25th president, William McKinley. He was also shot after giving a speech in New York on September 6th, 1901. He was shaking hands with the people passing through a receiving line when a man fired 2 shots into his chest at point blank range. Doctors had expected McKinley to recover, but then he died from the bullet wounds. So he died on September 14th, 1901, 6 months after opening his second term. He was succeeded by Vice President Theodore Roosevelt, who was also murdered. He was the 32nd president, if I'm not wrong. He was also murdered. He was murdered while he was still the president elect. He had just given a speech in Miami from the back of an open car when gunshots rang out. He was not injured in the Feb 1993 shooting that killed Chicago Mayor Anthony Carmack. So I'm reading a little bit of the presidents who have also been murdered, assassinated in the United States. There's also Harry Truman, the 33rd president, who was staying at Blair House across the street from White House in November 1950 when 2 gunmen broke in. Truman was not injured, but a White House policeman and one of the assailants were killed in an exchange of gunfire. Oh, it's not just the assassinations, it's the shootings, because I wondered how did he die when he was it's clear he was not shot. So there's also John F. Kennedy. He was fatally shot by a hidden assassin armed with high powered rifle as he visited Dallas in November 1963. Kennedy was rushed to Parkland Memorial Hospital where he died soon after. He was succeeded by Vice President Lyndon Johnson, who was sworn into office. So I'm just reading a little bit of history here, educating myself, and of course, maybe the other people who are watching who are not from the United States who don't know about the assassinations that have happened. I was researching on this after I saw the allegedly Trump attempted assassination. I don't know how true it was, whether he was almost assassinated, whether it was staged. There's a group of people saying that was staged. Another group of people believe that they wanted to take him out. The Secret Service wanted to take him out. So it's all a matter of. The other president was Ronald Reagan, the 40th president of the United States, who was leaving a speech in Washington, D.C., and walking to his motorcade when he was shot by a man who was in the crowd. Reagan, however, recovered from the March 1981 shooting. 3 other people were shot, including his press secretary, and who was partially paralyzed as a result. His shooter was arrested and confined to a mental hospital after jury found him not guilty by reason of insanity in shooting Reagan in 2022. He was the man who shot Ronald Reagan was actually released in 2022. So there's also George W. Bush. Bush was attending a rally in 2005 with Georgian President Mihaly Saakashvili when a hand grenade was thrown towards him. Both men were behind a bulletproof barrier when the grenade, wrapped in cloth, landed about 100 feet away. The grenade did not explode and no one was hurt. So at least for Bush, he survived that one in 2005. There's also so many. Robert F. Kennedy, there's it's quite a list in terms of people who have either been murdered, who have either been assassinated or shot at, attempted assassinations to do with the American presidents and presidential candidates. So I was looking at that because we woke up to news on Saturday. Was it on Saturday or was it on Friday? Yeah, it was on Saturday that Trump survived assassination by a whisker. How true that is, I'm saying I don't know. That was just a by the way. So let us come back to Africa, where Rwanda held its election today. An election that everybody knows and everybody expects Kagame to win. Why? Because the people he's competing against people he's going to beat. So he's going to secure a fourth term, extending his 25 years in power. He's been in power for 25 years. He's about to secure another term. His opposing candidates, one is called Frank Habineza from the Democratic Green Party, and an independent candidate called Philip Mpayama. All had hopes, but of course, if you look at how the elections in Rwanda have been over the past 2-3 times, then and you look at in the past 3 elections, Kagame received over 93% of the votes. Received over, in quotes, he received over 93% of the votes. He was commended by Western and regional leaders for his role in, so for a man who has received, in whichever way he received, 93% of the votes in the past 3 elections, then expecting that person to lose a 43% advantage and lose to some independent candidate is insanity. He's not going to lose. He's going to win again. Not just this time, but even the next. As long as they're going to have those elections in Rwanda, he's going to rule as long as Museveni, unless. So the funny bit is it's the Western leaders who always commend Kagame for his role in ending the 1994 genocide in Rwanda. I know how ironic that is. I just said it because they always commend him for that. And they treat Rwanda as, especially under Kagame, as some really advanced, developed country. They try to show, what is the GDP of Rwanda, by the way? Because the way they try to show Rwanda as some Europe, it's 13 billion. They try to for sure Rwanda, to showcase Rwanda as some country that is doing better than so many other countries, and for a fact that it has a 13 billion USD GDP, that just shows you that it's all, I would say it's all PR. They try so much to make Rwanda look like Kenya actually has a 113 billion USD GDP, if I'm not wrong. It has 113 billion. That is almost 4 times that of Rwanda. But if you look at the amount of PR that Rwanda gets, that was why they were even trying to send the illegal migrants from the UK to Rwanda. Rwanda actually sponsors a whole football team in the UK called Arsenal, sponsored by Rwanda. But it's a very, very poor country, and that has had the same president for all those years, and he's still going to be the one continuing. But of course, they try to show Rwanda as something that it's not. The reality is, Rwanda is a poor country. Mismanaged, poor country, has been mismanaged for the last many, many years. So those are the elections getting held in Rwanda. They're going to be announcing the results very soon. Another controversy with Rwanda is everybody knows that Rwanda has a role in the war that is happening in DRC. Actually, the other week, they found out that 4,000 Rwandanese forces fight alongside the M23 in the DRC. Does Rwanda finance the war in Congo? No, it doesn't. But whoever finances the war in Congo does it through Rwanda. So Rwanda does play a big, big role in the conflict, especially in the DRC. Not just from now, but ever since the genocide. That's been playing a role there, talking about how they are trying to protect their territory. They found 4,000 Congolese soldiers fighting against the alongside the M23 rebels in the DRC. So Rwanda has been on the forefront of destabilizing Congo. But are they really the one financing it? No. For a country with a 13 billion GDP, I doubt they have money to eat in order for them to remain with money to finance wars. I doubt they have enough to eat with 13 billion. 13 billion is a very, very, very poor country. Very, very poor country. So it doesn't have the capability to finance wars around, finance a war, even in itself. Can it be able to defend itself with the 13 billion USD? Of course, it might look like it's doing a little bit better, but it's really not. Even though if you compare it with other countries surrounding it, like Burundi and Congo and Somalia, and of course, it will look a little much better. It's a it's a sick region. That region is very, very sick, malnourished with poverty. Over the years, it has been kept in poverty over the years, of course, especially because it's a very rich region in terms of minerals. So the argument that Rwanda might be financing, Somalia has a GDP of 10 billion, imagine, and Rwanda has a GDP of 13 billion. However, if you were to look at the narrative that is sold of Somalia and that of Rwanda, you would think that the two countries are heaven and earth apart. But they really aren't. They only have a 3 billion USD, 3 billion difference in terms of their GDP. So for a country with a 13 billion GDP, I doubt they can be able to finance any war at all. Even doubt they can be able to finance themselves. So whoever finances the chaos and the unrest and the war in Congo, does that through Rwanda, so that they may not look like they are participating in whatever is happening, one, and two, they are saved from taking the blame. They can no longer take the blame in case anything happens, because at the end of the day, we are going to blame Rwanda for the conflict in Congo. In Algeria is having a situation that is similar to the one that is happening in Cameroon, where the Cameroonian president made sure that he was not going to compete with anyone in the upcoming elections. He used some provisions in the constitution to ensure that he disqualified most of his competitors, most of his opponents. He extended the parliamentary term, and the election there is so parliamentary oriented. You have to have numbers in the parliament in order for you to win a presidential election in that country. So extending the parliamentary term means that he's still going to enjoy the parliamentary majority. He's going to enjoy the parliamentary support, and he's therefore other even his opponents may not be allowed to run because they do not have the parliamentary numbers required in order for them to run. In Algeria, opponents and competitors of the sitting president are also quitting the Algeria's presidential ballot. One of them who quit yesterday was Louisa Hanoun of the Algerian Workers' Party. He said that going into the election was a waste of time due to the unfair conditions that had been put in place in the upcoming Algerian election. This comes after the current president is called Abdelmadjid Tebboune. He said that he would seek re-election. He's going to vie again. So, however, as I said, he's doing the same thing. The president Tebboune, he's doing the same thing as Cameroon is doing. He is using the legal framework to prevent opponents from running. So the same case as Cameroon, those are countries where, in as much as we say that democracy in Africa is just on paper, there are countries that it doesn't even exist, even on paper. One of them is this, the other one is Cameroon, the other one is Uganda, the other one is DRC, the other one is, those countries where they have had the same people leading them years in, years out. That is Algeria. And in Mogadishu, Somalia, which I was talking about with their GDP of 10, at least 5 people were killed in Mogadishu yesterday as they were watching the Euro football final, which Spain won, by the way. So 5 people were killed on Sunday in a bombing that happened outside a cafe in Mogadishu. People were watching the European football final between Spain and England on a screen inside the cafe in the Somali capital when a car loaded with explosives blew up outside. A staff member and many other people were injured, apart from the 5 who were confirmed dead on the spot. I don't know why especially this terrorist group, has this obsession with bombing people as they are watching games of football. I remember they did that in Mombasa quite a while ago in Kenya. People were watching the World Cup and then they bombed a certain restaurant, killing a lot of people. So yesterday they did the same in Somalia, where at least 20 people were injured and 5 people killed. Although the Al Shabaab has not said that it is responsible for the attack. We know it was the Al Shabaab which also attacked Kenya not long ago. It also attacked Kenya, killing at least 5 security personnel. And our last story of the day, it was a report that I was looking at by the UNICEF and the WHO, where they are claiming that global childhood immunization coverage has stalled, and it has left about, they said about 2.7 more additional children unvaccinated. That is in addition to the 14.5 million that had not been vaccinated last year. So according to them, there is an immunization gap where the their immunization estimate is falling under. In short, children, especially in Africa, are not getting vaccinated as much as they would be anymore. In comparison to the past, the numbers have stalled. And so the WHO and UNICEF had to release a statement, report, to remind the people that they should have their children vaccinated because it's dangerous, and missing on the first dose of vaccination might lead to them being vulnerable to preventable diseases. And so I don't know what. So they gave an example they gave an example, for instance, of the measles outbreak, which they said was caused by low vaccine coverage. I'm just looking at the report and reading it as it is. Of course, you can call all the lies in it. They went on to say that, for example, the HPV vaccine, which was not, many people did not receive the HPV vaccine, so that led, of course, to a surge in the same. So they're saying that they are now working towards meeting the immunization agenda 2030. The immunization agenda 2030 is to ensure that every child from vulnerable, non-vulnerable African family is going to get vaccinated. And it has not been working because for the last 2 years, according to the UNICEF and WHO, the immunization numbers have been going down. People are not getting vaccinated as much as they used to be. For them, they are blaming finances. For me, I'm blaming nuance. For them, they're saying that if they get more money, they are going to reach more children and more people are going to get now vaccinated. For me, I'm saying they are losing. It has stalled because people are getting more and more nuanced and they are starting to question the vaccines. It's not like the past where you just come, knock on a door and tell the parent that you want to vaccinate, immunize their kid against whatever disease, and they would give their child to you to inject and to feed with whatever drugs and medicines you have. Now people question things. People ask, how safe is the vaccine that you're giving us? And I know the whole story about the numbers dropping because they do not have enough funding is a lie, because even for the COVID vaccine, they had all the money, propaganda machines, propaganda. They had everything in place, but still not many Africans got vaccinated against COVID, despite all the mechanisms they used, despite all the pictures that they would spread on social media, showing, I don't know, 1,000 people dying a day per day in France. I don't know how many people dying per day in the United States, to drive the fear into the people to get vaccinated. With all the money they had, to a point that they wanted to set up messenger RNA and mRNA vaccine production facility in Kenya. Despite all the propaganda, all the finances, and all the resources that they had in their hands, they could still not convince Africans to take the COVID vaccine. So when they say that the immunization coverage is going down because of lack of resources, I think it's a lie, because we saw you 2 years ago with all the resources and all the propaganda techniques and methodologies, you still could not convince people to take vaccines, because people are nuanced now. They can question things, they want to understand the reasoning behind, they want to know what is the composition of this vaccine that you're giving me, and I was okay before you came. So why are you trying to vaccinate, immunize me against I don't know what type of disease? How safe are your vaccines? Have we taken them to our labs as Africans and established that indeed these vaccines, these immunizations, these certain, they are safe for us? So they can continue blaming finances and for the, because the numbers have stuck at 84%. It's stalled, it's not going up anymore, and 14.5 million children did not get vaccinated last year, which is a worry for them. So they now came up calling, one, for additional financing, and two, calling on people to have their children vaccinated, because apparently not having your kid vaccinated is very, very dangerous, and it might affect them, according to UNICEF and the WHO, reading it as it is. That was them with their report, which they released over the weekend. And lastly, in Kenya, several bodies have been retrieved from an abandoned quarry as the Inspector General of Police resigned. So they have found about 9 bodies, and Kenya's police chief, his name is Japhet Koome, had to resign on the same day 5 bodies wrapped in sacks were found in a quarry near an informal settlement, and after weeks of deadly protest in which more than 40 people were killed. So people are speculating that the bodies that were found dumped in that quarry were bodies of people who were murdered during the protests. President Ruto, however, on Friday announced that he had asked for all the available resources to go into trying to investigate the source of the bodies that they found chopped and put in bags. They were chopped and put in sacks in a quarry in Nairobi. So today the DCI is equivalent to the FBI. It's the Kenyan FBI, the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, came out and said that the people who had been murdered had nothing to do with the demonstrations, but it was a serial killer gone loose. He had been killing people since 2022 and had killed including his wife. Kenyans, however, are not buying it, and they thought that was a divisive, that was a lie. It was made up, and that the government was trying to cover up for something. The DCI, however, still insists that the murderer himself confessed to having killed more than the bodies that were recovered. He said that he had started the murders in 2022 when he killed his wife. All the bodies that were found in that quarry were female, and they were badly mutilated, cut, and put in sacks. So Ruto dismissed his cabinet on Thursday, and he also announced that he received the resignation of Inspector General Koome, who was serving as the Kenya's police boss. Now his deputy Douglas Kanja is the one who's going to be taking over. So investigations for the same are still continuing. When I say investigations, I don't mean just from the government, but citizens are also investigating. For example, when the government came out and said that the bodies that were found, 9 of them, were not as a result of the demos, but rather of a serial killer, people came out with their different stories. Of course, an alternative story talking about the fact that the government might be making up this whole story up to cover up for the murders that they did they may have committed during the demonstrations. So everything at this point is speculative, with the question being the source of the 9 bodies all of a sudden. And I have to mention the source of the 9 female bodies, especially months after we had a surge in femicide cases in Kenya, where Kenyan women were getting murdered by Nigerians, by everybody was out there try killing our women. And we even had to, even here at Black Hot Fire, we had to have a campaign, a end femicide campaign. We talked about it for almost a week. So is it femicide that is back? Is it murders that from the demons? So the question is it femicide that is back, that is a result of the 9 bodies? Are they murders from the demonstrations that happened in Githurai? And tomorrow people are going back in the streets to protest and demonstrate against President Ruto. The agenda tomorrow, they say, is Ruto must go. So people are still going to be on the streets tomorrow. And Ruto today claimed that the demonstrations at this point are financed, and he said that they're being financed by the Ford, there's an NGO called the Ford, the American Ford vehicle company. So there is an NGO called Ford something. He said that it is the one that is financing the unrest and the chaos that is being brought about, especially when the Gen Zs are out there demonstrating. We've been seeing groups of criminals infiltrating the demonstrations and painting them violent, but in real sense, they are very peaceful demonstrations by Kenyan youth who are trying to pass a message that it was time for accountability. So tomorrow there are going to be demos. I'm going to be reporting tomorrow in the evening how the demos went. But that was all I had today. Hope you enjoyed the rest of your day. It's always a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen. Much love, family.